round two. First things first, I'm Jenna Wolf alongside Nick Wright, who sweated out a tough one last night. Brandon Marshall will tell you in a second, Mr. Kevin Wilds. And after an incredible night of wild finishes in the NBA last night, we start the show with one question. Did somebody say something about James Harden's defense? What? That's where we start this morning. Thunder Rockets Game 7, a wild finish. 9 seconds left. Thunder down 1. Luguentz Dort's shot blocked by James Harden. The same James Harden whose defense has been knocked his whole career. The same James Harden who had another miserable game on offense. Yes, that James Harden. And that play sends the Rockets on to face LeBron and the Lakers after beating the Oklahoma City Thunder in 7 games. Here is James Harden after Houston's big win.
Like, it's cool to, you know, get 40 or 50 points or be shooting the ball extremely well. Obviously, we all want to do that. But just to get recognition and for it to pay off, you know, when it counts on the defensive end and show that I've been engaged and locked in, for it to show in a clutch moment, it means a lot.
I know, man. It's a tough one. It's tough. We fought hard all year. Obviously, a lot of people doubted us, but we didn't doubt ourselves. We didn't give a damn about anybody's predictions going into any series. In any game, we expected to win.
All right. And that's the way we played all season long. Every game, we expected to win. And so, yeah, that's a tough one.
Clearly an emotional toll taken on the players in this series. They really gutted out through 7 games. Nick, you wiped your brow because you had picked the Rockets, but they just barely made it. The irony of James Harden pulling it out on defense. What'd you make of the wild finish last night?
Well, I wiped my brow less because of my prediction and more because if the Rockets lose that game, what it means for, we know Mike D'Antoni's gone. I had been hesitant to say this because I'm a little conflicted on this because I consider Daryl Morey a personal friend. But if they lose that game, I wonder if Daryl is brought back. And I also wonder if the entire kind of ethos of this team of leaning into the math is changed, or if they try to make a major trade this offseason to pivot away from where they're at, which is why that play we're showing right there might be the biggest play of James Harden's entire career. Listen, Harden was bad last night. For 46.5 minutes, he was bad. But he had another block earlier in the fourth quarter that was a huge play when it was a 1-point game. And then this block right there, which saves the Rockets franchise from total abject disaster. And it also, Brandon, saves James Harden's legacy from taking almost a hit that you couldn't recover from. He has had some really bad playoff moments, but for the last 5 years, they're playing the Warriors. Like, you can justify it. They weren't the better team. If they lose this series, Brandon, to this team against Chris Paul and kind of a makeshift group of guys that people thought wasn't even going to be in the playoffs, Harden is forever scarlet lettered. And so that still could happen to him, but this was maybe the biggest moment for Harden his entire career because of what it meant for the here and now for the franchise and for the future of how we look at James Harden, Brandon.
They're lucky to get out of Game 7, Nick. I mean, we wake up at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, for a production meeting to go through the show.
4:15.
And last night, I'm just sitting there in my bed watching this game, and I'm like, is this why I'm staying up? This is not what I want to see. Everyone's talking about James Harden's defense. Like, this is great. We've been asking him to do this for years. This is exactly what the Rockets need. No, it is not. What we need from the Rockets and James Harden is for them to continue to double down on Plan A. Plan A is small ball. Plan A is running everything through James Harden. I don't want to see James Harden playing this type of defense. I don't want to hear him in press conferences say, oh, I'm engaged and I'm getting it done on the defensive side. That's what's going to get you outs. That's what's going to break up this entire franchise. We need James Harden scoring 40, 50 points. That's what we need. They're lucky to get out of Game 7 to see another day. But James Harden, please, man, do not listen to the media. Don't listen to us. Please don't. Go be the James Harden we know. Dominate the basketball. Force the refs to call the foul. Don't get your teammates involved. Because if you want to continue to move on, you need to be James Harden that we've seen for the past 4 to 5 years.
Well, Brandon, you know what I think? I was not super stressed last night, but I woke up sad. And it's a sad day for me, and it's a sad day for anyone that likes memes, Jenna. Because the James Harden is terrible at defense meme is probably dead now. And look, I'm not saying James Harden is Gary Payton, but James Harden is no James Harden. He had 3 blocks last night, 2 in crunch time. This season, he had 125 steals. He had 6 most deflections. He recovered 100 loose balls, 3rd in the league. And if you combine those up, deflections and loose balls, there's like defensive stalwarts on this team in James Harden. We've had this narrative all wrong. So if anybody wants to tweet out James Harden is terrible at defense, I don't think we can anymore. It's really rough for us.
Yeah, but guess
and
what?
Nick, while I think
guess what, Wild?
Go ahead, Brandon.
But guess what, Wild? That James Harden defense and these stats that you're showing, they took a Oklahoma City Thunder team to Game 7. So what did this accomplish? It accomplished nothing. They were supposed to beat the Thunder, but it took them 7 games to do it. This is not what we want to see out of James Harden.
That's true, but you know what I think, though, Brandon? One of the things that makes Harden fun to root for is that he is a little roller coastery, that he feels a little bit, I don't know, he feels a little bit more human, like you don't know what you're going to get. It's exciting. And Nick,
here's listen,
he had that big turnover game. I'd still be very worried about him if the Lakers series goes 7. I would be very, very nervous if I was James Harden, because then his legacy would be on the line again. This block doesn't erase everything.
Well, what he has going for him in the Lakers series is they're not expected to win. But I have been as big of a supporter and defender of James Harden of anyone in the media. And James Harden, by the way, has been a good defensive player for the better part of 4 years now. He has been one of the best post defenders statistically or eye test wise over the last 3 years. But of course, to Brandon's point, he is who he is because he's won 3 straight scoring titles, because the last 2 years combined, he's averaged 35 points per game, which we haven't seen anyone do in the modern era of basketball. That is why Harden is who he is. But also who Harden is, unfortunately, and we now have a large sample size, is a guy who is not great in these moments. And I don't want to kill him too much because, listen, their final game of the year last year against the Warriors, he had 35, 8, and 5, but got annihilated because they lost. So it's not fair to then be like, well, last night he was bad on offense, but we're going to annihilate him even though they won. But he is a different guy in the biggest games of the year. That is undeniable. But I'm going to say something else, Wild, that's going to make you sad. Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
It's because he's trying to fix the things that we in the media is asking him to fix. He's not this great defensive player. Well, that's not why we pay him. We pay him to score the basketball. That's what you pay James Harden for. So as players, you hear the noise. It's time for James Harden to block the noise and go back to doing what he does. He dominates the basketball. He forces the refs to call the hard fouls. We're not seeing that right now. If you saw him last night, you saw this guy dribbling, penetrating, kicking it.
You're right about that. He needed to attack more, and his shot wasn't falling, so he needed to find a way to get the free throw line. That's all totally fair. My point is that we have seen a bunch of these elimination games where Harden's efficiency all of a sudden falls off a cliff. But what I was going to say, Wilds, here's the other thing. And for far too long in his career, I think Chris Paul was unfairly criticized. But Chris Paul made a big thing of, some folks are built for this. He's staring down James Harden in a way we've never seen. And I know the bubble doesn't happen without Chris Paul, and I know he's an all-timer. Those last 3 minutes, he didn't exactly cloak himself in glory. He checks back into the game with 4 minutes left, With 3 minutes left, he has a bad turnover. A couple with a minute.
No, Nick, that wasn't a bad turnover.
No, that was a bad turnover. I know you love
great
it.
defense.
Listen, here's what Chris Paul did in the final 4 minutes of the game. He had a bad turnover. He missed a 7-foot jump shot. The next possession, if you watch the next possession, you don't even see Chris Paul. He's 40 feet from the basket, letting the SGA try to cook. And the next possession on that one, that led to the final sequence, which was bizarre, he gives up the basketball. You can't give up the basketball there, Chris. And if you do, you got to get it right back. And on the inbound play, he's stuck in the corner, and they give it to Steven Adams. After, by the way,